square and a whatever, there's whatever circle and a square hole. With that said, the answer to your question, the benefits of sometimes having a distribution company is I think the level of your film. Meaning, like, if it's definitely a higher level, and it's like you have almost like an A-list star or something like that, it has the right type of genre. It totally fits all the things. I think the perfect example would be all the Liam Neeson's films, the films where he's like, I have a special set of skills. He's got to find his all his family. Like, that is the most perfect example of someone who is like an aging sort of A-list star, but who could do an action film. And then it's always like in these international companies because he's an international star because people recognize him from his years of work. But then he's in a genre, the action revenge genre, that works universally in terms of you don't need a lot of the dialogue can be easily replaced through dubbing and subtitles, and it's all visual, But he's made a franchise off that. And that's where a distribution company comes in very handy because then they can sell it off and license it to not only these different territories, but then they can start making deals with cable companies. They can make the television rights. And a lot of these distribution companies really work well with the television partnerships because then that's a whole different beast in terms of what rights are. But that world's also changing too, right? Because, if we almost feel like this cannibalism of like Netflix. Like there's so much content they're pumping out at us that it's like there used to be like 3 channels, and then we had cable. There was multiple channels, and now we had like the internet was way too many channels. Now we're like finding ourselves coming back to like I only watch like Netflix, and all the content's being pumped to there. So it's interesting. So a distribution company at a certain level project can be very beneficial as they sell off to all these different territories. For the uber independent that gets jammed into these distribution companies where their film is one of like 10 other films and it's just sold off as bundles, there's you get lost in the shuffle. And so then you're asking the great question. If you ask that question to these distribution companies like Bitmax or Distributor, just ask like, so just clarify, I could just do this with your company. So why would I ever go with a distribution company? They'll tell you, ask them. They're right in the middle of it. Yeah.
But once, like, let's say we go with one of those companies and we end up releasing the film. Once we've released the film, we can't then go for the international market and try to get an international distributor, or can we?
You can if your specific rights are just for domestic. So just like make sure the contract is like, we're working with this. You mean in terms of aggregation company?
Yeah, meaning if we decide, we're not going to go with a sales company or distribution company because it seems to make a lot of sense to go straight with distributor and get on all the automated platforms. But now we want to sell internationally and in other territories around the world. Can we do it at that time, or do we have to do everything at the same time?
No, you can piece it. You can do it staggered. It's somebody listening to this might say like, the thing about distribution companies or sales agents and stuff like that, they kind of just want it all at once in a sense like, let us handle your domestic, and then our relationships with our international buyers, then we can start seeing where it can go from there. If it's a project they really feel they want to stand behind and they can make money off of, they got to get their paycheck somehow. And the motivation, the incentive of all these sales agents and acquisition executives is that they have to pick winners. Which is why they say no more than they say yes, because the pressure's on them to be like, you as an acquisition executive are only good as the collection of films that you put into the catalog of your company that generate money. If you pick if you're just a bad picker, and it's just not happening, then you're not going to be an acquisition executive very long, Right. So the incentive for these sales executives and acquisition executives is simply like, I got to generate money for the company. Does this film fit into the type of films that we are able to easily sell with our partnerships across the globe? So it's a little bit, if they see somebody like come in, an independent producer, say, no, we've already locked up our distribution rights because we've launched it directly on iTunes and Amazon and everything initially right now on domestic. But we make sure we carved it out so it's just North America and it's not on platforms in Europe on iTunes. You know, it's only available in the United States. So then they might be less likely because they'll be like, oh, that was like a revenue stream that we could have grabbed. Like, well, you know, then you're dealing with like a distribution company that has like international connections. Before you even do that, you want to, like, if you want to reach out to the international market, that's the relationships you want to like start emailing all these companies saying, we have this film, we're looking for international representation, a sales agent, a distribution company. Is this something that, you know, fits in your catalog or the type of things you work on? And you can do your research too. You can say like, I saw that you had these films in your catalog. I think our film is similar to these films. You know, if you agree, I would love to have more of a discussion about whether or not, you know, something you would like to maybe talk about bringing on to, you know, as part of your catalog for the international film sales. And then that way it opens possibilities of like, what you call it, what your domestic strategy is going to be. Because if you mention to them like you're just going to go through an aggregator straight, then they're like, oh, okay, wait, we don't want to do that. Like you can kind of gauge like how the partnership is going to work or not. And you're doing the right thing because you're just having conversations with people. But you can see it can be exhausting until you just find the right one. Yeah.
But are international distribution companies accustomed to having unsolicited submissions or requests, or do they just like working with sales agents and
that is a great question. And if you, I'm going to give you a link that IndieWire just recently produced. It's someone who is working in the Sundance Film Lab and distribution arm of things. They did a massive Q&A with just a number of different distribution companies about this very question. And the reality is almost 90% of all these companies, they have to get the content from a trusted source. Like unsolicited, there's just too much content they don't even bother with. So
right, yeah, that's what I was worried about.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a good step might be to go to a distributor or a Bitmax, and then see if there's a way to get an international sales agent or producer's rep that can help sell to those territories, as long as we only have the domestic rights tied up through iTunes or Amazon.
I'll also put you in touch with like some of the other past guests we've had that that could give you more of an insight as well. You know, I'm thinking about Ben Yenny, who's a producer's rep up in San Francisco. He wrote a book on the American film market. He's known as the Guerrilla Rep. He has a lot of insight. You know, that not this just more options. You don't have to do everything that anybody says. Like you don't do anything I say. Or, you know, I'm just saying this is just collective things. And then some other people, too, that just might be helpful. I did notice we're rounding like the hour and a half mark. I'll have to like wrap up the session here. But is there any last minute questions that we...
No, just one more quick question,
yeah.
Which is, I noticed that when we were submitting our film to some of these larger film festivals, in the submission form, it would say, what is, you know, your sales agent's contact, and are you okay with us contacting them directly?
Yeah.
And I've also heard that sometimes if you don't have a sales rep or producer's rep that's kind of the champion for your film through the festival circuit, that there is always a chance that your film will not even get watched. And I know that could just be my paranoid mind, but at the same time, some of these festivals, you know, I submit Vimeo links, private Vimeo links for the festivals that are exclusive to each festival. I don't send the same link to every festival. And so I can track how many times they viewed it. And I know there's some hubbub about if it's an Apple TV, it doesn't necessarily track through Vimeo. But some of these festivals did not watch my film. Another one watched it, like Sundance has watched it a number of times, you know. But the analytics for some of the other ones, they didn't watch it at all. Of course, I don't have a sales agent yet because I can't figure out this friggin' market. But
yeah.
But do you need a sales agent to be the champion of your film to make sure that it is watched at the festivals or the festival submission process?
Yeah, I'll tell you this: the closing thoughts as we wrap this one up, this part of it. We can have like a second later. You can come back on and share with all of us what you discovered too. Yeah. But one thing the ones that do very well in the film festivals and sort of the higher prestige film festivals, they're almost like already pre-sold. Like the festival just becomes sort of a release party, loss leader, sort of initial marketing stunt to get noticed. But behind the scenes, a lot of those deals have already been made. And Scott Kirkpatrick talks about that in this book. He says, don't fool yourself. It's all that stuff has already been done ahead of time. They use these sales agents and distribution companies will utilize their connections with some of the prestigious film festivals just to get it out there. But all this stuff has already been done. But there's one thing I definitely have seen, and the podcast we did was the one thing I learned too about the Paranormal Activity success story. Collectively, everyone is going to need some sort of champion. So your film, one way to look at it too is, do you market it to a producer that can come on to an executive producer who has cachet? So it's produced by a very well-known group of people that made a film similar to what you've done. And so the difference is, like, do you even market it to the general public first, or do you utilize what you've created as a stepping stone for something bigger? Because what it is like, if you work with a certain producer or production company, like, we like what you did, there's more stuff we want you to do further. There's always this champion you need. If you start tracing back to all these success stories that we like in certain films, you realize, like, there's always this one person, like, oh, wait a minute, that person had a lot of clout that got them, like, this was a springboard. And you always hear back, like, the project that seems to get launched was because of some other project they had done that this influencer, this champion, had seen before and liked, and then it was always like the second project that is the one that seems like it came out of nowhere. But these relationships have actually been built, years prior. So there's something, I think, collectively for all of us film troopers to listen to, is simply like, it doesn't always mean that when you finish your film that it has to go to the general public to be sold. Perhaps it's just a marketing tool to, get out to a influencer.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, with that said, I do have to jam. I have an appointment I got to get to, but we can follow up. I really like to hear more about how this develops, and we could talk more online and, back and forth, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right, great.
It's a lot of information I've learned, and a lot more I'm probably going to learn. So yeah, I'd be happy to come back and share it with you.
Film Trooper, empowering filmmaking entrepreneurs.